How you doing, everybody? Welcome back to Pokemon Showdown Voice Clips Edition. Today I have a rather hilarious DDT battle that I had against Cardboard a little while ago. It was before I actually, I guess I should explain a little bit first of all. I apologize in advance if this commentary isn't necessarily as, exciting or enthusiastic as the ones that have been previous to this, because recently, last weekend, I was actually in the hospital. I was hospitalized for appendicitis, and I had to get my appendix removed, and so I still have the stitches in me, so it's a little difficult to sit still and stay edgy, and I am edgy all the time now because of the fact that there's still staples in my stomach, and it really hurts to just sit here and not do anything and lean forward when I can't really lean forward without them digging into my skin. So as if that wasn't bad enough, I apologize in advance if the commentary is a little bit less enthralling than it has been previously. But today I have a battle that I had against Cardboard before I actually went in for the stitches. I think this was like the day before I actually got rushed to the emergency room. Not 100% sure. No, it was like the week before that. And I think it was late. I think I was playing a little bit stupidly for no apparent reason, but it was pretty funny, I thought. It had a lot of luck involved that I thought was pretty hilarious, and it actually turned out to be a pretty good battle, so let's get right into that. So as usual, I'm going to start the battle off on slow, just so that way I can, make my little commentary a little bit less frantic. It'll help me this way, and I feel like even though I'm, a little bit under the weather here, I can still probably fix this to go on slow.
Ready, go!
Okay, so I start the battle off with my Floatzel, and again, if you can guess where the nicknames are from, that would be awesome. It'd be really cool. He starts off the battle with his Stoutland. I thought Floatzel would take on his team pretty well, but his Stoutland intimidating me kind of doesn't make me feel comfortable. So he switches out. I'm not really sure why, honestly. He probably could have done a bunch of damage to my Floatzel that way, but I don't want to stay out to do anything with an attack drop. So I go into Aggron. I figured, he'll probably switch out because he doesn't want to take a heavy slam from this thing. But it turns out he actually stays in, and I go for the Stealth Rock expecting a switch. And he goes for the Nasty Plot, which actually isn't good because my Aggron is scarfed, so I have to now switch out in order to get it to do another move. So I switch out an Ampharos, just figuring, if it's a special attacker, I can probably take the hits. He uses Baton Pass, and Baton Pass is a special attack raise into his Regigigas. And it's a bulkier set, it's got leftovers, so I figured, this is probably not going to do much. I'm going to Volt Switch just because I don't really think that Ampharos can do too much to this thing. It turns out Ampharos can take the hits pretty well, but I didn't know that until later. So I go out into Sableye because it has an Assault Vest, so I feel like I can probably take at least one hit, and I'll just see the damage and then go from there. It takes about half from this Earth Power, and I'm like, well, I can probably just do a little bit of damage. Hopefully it wasn't like min-max or something like that, so I might as well try to do as much as I can. I go for the Power-Up Punch, and I get my 2x attack because Sableye has Simple in DDT. He goes for the Thunderbolt, and it almost takes me out, but not quite, so now I can get off a big hit with Knockoff. And so I'd go for that. The next turn, Knockoff is leftovers. It didn't really matter too much, but Knockoff was my strongest move at that point to hit the Regigigas with. I was going to die right here anyway, so I figured it'd be better if I just got a big hit off rather than using a super effective move. So he goes for the Earth Power, and then that takes out my Sableye. It's unfortunate, it would have been helpful later in the battle, but then I can come in with Ampharos, and because he's still got Slow Start going, I can go for an Aura Sphere and take it out. If you didn't know, Ampharos gets Aura Sphere in DDT because it gets Focus Blast, excuse me. So then he goes into this Victory Bell, and Victory Bell is a problem, especially in the Sun. I've seen him use this Sunset before. I'm not 100% sure if Sunset. If it's the same set that he was using previously, or if he had switched it up any. So I wanted to basically do a little bit of checking around, see what he's got. But I Volt Switch out, and I'm like, okay, well, I might be able to outspeed with Aggron in the Sun, but I'm an idiot, and of course Victory Bell outspeeds with Chlorophyll in the Sun, so Aggron just goes down straight to a Solar Beam, and Aggron would have been really helpful for the rest of this match as well, but that's okay. So I just go out into my Ampharos just as a little bit of a pivot, just to see how much damage the Solar Beam will do. He uses Solar Beam, and it does about 42%, which is a lot, but at the same time Ampharos took that pretty well considering it's a Victory Bell in the Sun. So I'm pretty much at this point just relying on stalling out the Sunny Day, and then I can knock it out later on with something like Floatzel with an Ice Punch or anything like that. So I switched out into Whimsicott just to check and see if he has the Sludge Bomb, and indeed he does. I mean, I really wanted to check just to make sure, but he was probably going to be running Dual Stab anyway. He gets a crit, and it was, I mean, I could have lived too otherwise, but he felt bad for that. So he goes for the Sunny Day again just to let me do something. I didn't know he was going to feel bad for it, so I just went for a rest figuring I was going to die on that turn, and it turns out he goes for the Sunny Day to cancel out the hacks, and I actually end up getting all my health back. So that was nice of him, but he really didn't need to do that. I was really just using Ampharos for fodder at this point in order to stall out the Sun turns. So I had my HP all the way back to full, uses Solar Beam, does about the same as last time. I Sleep Talk a Volt Switch, which is nice, because now I can go out into something that can probably deal at least a little bit of damage to him. I don't think Floatzel will outspeed in the Sun, but I want to scare him out into thinking that I have like a Scarf or something like that, because he hasn't seen my item yet. So I switch immediately out of Floatzel into Ampharos to take another hit. He switches out into his Stoutland so that way he can lower my attack. Good play on his part, but I wasn't really planning on staying in too much anyway. Now, the thing that I used to think about Stoutland, he goes for the return. It doesn't KO because I'm pretty highly invested in HP. I used to think Stoutland was a normal and ground type, which would be pretty cool, although Diggersby kind of takes that role nowadays. But if it was a normal ground type, this Volt Switch wouldn't have allowed me to switch out, and I would have been a little bit screwed that turn, but it's just a normal type, so Volt Switch actually works. So I switch out into Whimsicott because I know Whimsicott has a good defense stat, and I know that it can take any one hit unless this thing's banded. I'm not 100% sure if it was banded or if that would have mattered, but I know I can take a hit and I can go for a Moonblast and knock it out. So good job, Whimsicott. That was really helpful. He goes into his Togetic. Honestly, I probably should have just left Whimsicott at this point to die, because it isn't really that useful for the rest of his team. But I decided to switch out just in case I might need it to KO something later with like a fast, revenge killer, even though it's not a Choice Scarf thing. And he actually goes for a Defog on the switch. So I probably could have gotten into Moonblasts and possibly, potentially, at least done 60% to this Togetic. Maybe even knocked it out depending on how much my specs Moonblasts would be doing to a Togetic. I'm not really 100% sure on that. But I go for the rest this turn. He goes for the Nasty Plot, figuring I'm probably going to switch out, go for the rest to get my health back. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, so he figures, he can keep setting up, but it turns out I actually Sleep Talk another Volt Switch, so he can't actually set up anymore. What we find out as he goes out into Floatzel, as he says in the chat there, is that he actually went for another Nasty Plot, figuring, well, he's asleep. There's only 1 in 3 chance that he'll get the move that he actually needs to do something to me. So I'm going to keep setting up. So he goes out into his Articuno on a hard switch because I'm definitely faster, so I can go for a Waterfall, and I could have knocked out the Togetic from there. The Articuno takes a decent amount of damage from this, but not a huge amount. It's probably HP invested pretty highly. So I go into Ampharos just to check how much damage this is going to do, and Ampharos, man, is doing a lot of work in this battle just because it can basically tank any hits that his team has. So it's really helpful. So I forgot if I used 2 turns of sleep at this turn. So he goes into Togetic, and I forget to Sleep Talk because, again, I forgot my sleep turns at this point. I wasn't playing the greatest that night, but it still turned out to be a good battle, so either way. Next turn, I actually end up waking up, and I don't like that I have to use Volt Switch to KO his Togetic, because that gives him switch initiative, but it still knocks it out, and it's still not too big of a deal, because I can go into something and just deal some good damage to the rest of his team. So I go into Floatzel. I figure, I can Ice Punch the Victory Bell, I can Waterfall, anything else. He goes into Articuno, and I know that the Freeze Dry is coming, but I really don't want anybody to take that, so I figure I'll just use Floatzel, get a Waterfall off, and do some decent damage to this Articuno. He goes for the Freeze Dry, and it knocks out Floatzel pretty easily. Sorry about the yawns, I'm, tired from all this recovery. So I go into Whimsicott, figuring, I can definitely KO from that range with a Moonblast. I know Articuno is specially bulky, but it's not that specially bulky. So he makes the smart play and goes out into his Laren because he probably knows I'm not going to go for a Giga Drain. I was thinking about it because I was anticipating a switch, but I decided it was not worth the risk. So I just go for a Moonblast, does decent damage to this Laren. I switch out into Xatu just as fodder. He doesn't miss the Head Smash, but I live it. You what? Damn, Zatu, you scary. So this bold max invested Zatu just lived a hit from a Laren. I don't know if it was banded or not. If it was, Jesus freaking Christ, Zatu. So I wanted to burn it so that way it wasn't as much of a threat with his physical attacks there, and so I wouldn't die this turn from burn damage. So I go for a Psycho Shift. He switches into Articuno, which takes the burn. It's got 1 turn left worth of stuff to do, and I figured I'll just leave Zatu in as fodder at this point for the freeze dry, but it turns out I'm actually faster, so I'm thinking this Articuno was invested in HP rather than the speed. I'm not 100% sure on that. He goes for the freeze dry. I live that as well, and that just doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, Zatu is not that bulky. I mean, it's got not max, but near max HP investment, but it's just crazy. And then to top it all off, he goes into this Victory Bell. The next turn I outspeed at this point because it's slower, because it's not in the sun yet. I Sleep Talk a Psycho Shift and put the Victory Bell to sleep. Oh my god, Zatu. Just the string of 3 turns here was pretty damn ridiculous. So and this is all going on. I'm going crazy in the comments, and I forgot that I was not still asleep. So I used Sleep Talk on this turn like a dumbass. He actually ends up waking up and going for a Sludge Bomb. It didn't matter too terribly much that he did that, but just the fact that I got the Sleep Talk Psycho Shift the last turn, I think it really might have thrown the game off edge, and it might have made us both a little bit crazy here. Now, I should have gone for the Shadow Ball here with Whimsicott, because I could have knocked out the Victory Bell and I could have done some decent damage to the Laren when it came in. I went for the Hurricane, I got greedy, and I missed the Hurricane. So then he KOs me with a Sludge Bomb, which is unfortunate, but I guess, you know, it's a 70% accuracy move. I can't really expect too much. So now I'm praying for no poison hacks, I'm praying for no crits. I go out into Ampharos in order to use Volt Switch just to knock this thing out. I get a crit there, but in the long run, I'm pretty sure Victory Bell couldn't have taken 2 unless I got like 2 min damage rolls or something like that in a row. And even then I probably could have rested. I don't think that mattered too much, to be completely honest with you. So he goes for another Sludge Bomb just to take me down a little bit of HP, and I go for the Volt Switch. Can't switch out in anything, but I can knock out the Victory Bell. He didn't get the poison, and he didn't get a crit, so that was nice. So then he goes out into this Laren. I'm hoping to God it's not Scarfed, and it turns out it's not, so I can just go for the Aura Sphere and knock it out. And that'll be the game, ladies and gentlemen. It was a very close match, and it was very hacksy, I guess you could say. It was luck reliant on my part, and I really got lucky with the roulette for Sleep Talk, but I thought it was a fun battle regardless. And really, I just like DDT because it's a lot of fun. It gives a lot of different Pokemon versatility in places that you wouldn't normally see in the regular tiers. So I just really like it. Most of the matches that I have in DDT end up being a lot of fun regardless of what the outcome is. So that's going to be it for this battle. A good game, Cardboard. It was definitely a close match, and I'd definitely be up for doing it again. No matter what tier you want to play, man, I'm up for it. But yeah, so that's going to be the battle for this time. I'll see you guys next Saturday, and thanks for watching.